I am fascinated by how pissed off you are about Mike McCarthy and the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to come back to that story. But I want to plant the seed now. The Chicago Bears, Chicago, the Bears, have asked permission to talk to Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy, whose contract expires today. He is in an exclusive negotiating window with the Dallas Cowboys until next Tuesday. Then he can go wherever he wants. The Bears have asked permission. It's a formality. Why do you hate this so much?
Well, I mean, I just think that, my first reaction was I just felt like the Bears could do better. I felt like the Bears were, are regarded as the best opening, or if not the best opening, the second best opening. So for me, I just feel like, Mike McCarthy is someone who, yes, is a veteran head coach, has experience, could probably do some good things for you. But I don't feel like Mike McCarthy is the solution to everything that the Bears need. And in my opinion, I do feel like the Bears are in the rebuilding process. You've got a young quarterback. You've got a terrible offensive line. You've got a really, really solid, one of the best wide receiver rooms. So you have weapons that way. The defense is solid, can improve in some areas, but is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like when we talk about like where the Bears are at, you're still trying to figure out what offensive system is going to work for you moving forward. And that's where I say, everybody up until yesterday when this news came out was all over Cliff Kingsbury, Ben Johnson, young offensive-minded head coach that can come in here and relate to Caleb Williams and form that relationship and push the Bears forward. Mike McCarthy news comes out, and everyone loses their mind and says that Mike is now, somehow the best option for the Bears. And I just think that was really reactionary. I felt like, people just jumped all over Mike McCarthy. And I understand the guy's won a Super Bowl. I understand that, he's been around some of the best quarterbacks that the NFL has to offer. So I'm not saying Mike is a bad head coach or that he is somehow, incapable of doing what the Bears need their next head coach to do. But what I am saying is that I feel like there's been this pretty swift swing out of the Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury sort of philosophy is in terms of who they're going to hire. And what I don't want the Bears to do is go after Mike with the mindset of, hey, this guy's the best available because he's been doing it longer. I just don't agree with that. I think that, when it comes to head coaches, and this is at the college level or in the NFL, you need a guy that's dynamic. You need a guy that has the right energy for your situation. And I just don't know if that's Mike McCarthy because he's got more experience.
Well, I think certainly what ails the Chicago Bears is what Mike McCarthy does well. I mean, for all of Mike's failings, one, yes, he won a Super Bowl. Yeah, it was 15 years ago. Absolutely it was. He won a Super Bowl. The thing that this Chicago Bears team needs is they need a veteran coach who understands how to handle veteran players. And the thing that I disagree with and where we part company on the Chicago Bears is I don't believe the Bears are rebuilding. I think the Bears have a top 10, certainly probably top 7 defense. I think this team has one of the better wide receiver rooms in the league. You have a capable set of running backs, and you have a dynamic young quarterback who has zero offensive line. That's not a rebuilding team. Do you have ownership issues? Absolutely. You have a really solid young general manager, and they've got to address the offensive line. I think that is very different than rebuilding. I think it is very different than saying that you have to tear this thing down. This is not the New York Jets. This is not, we don't have a quarterback. We don't have an offensive line. We don't have a head coach. We don't have a general manager, and we don't have an ownership group. That's rebuilding. And I think that that part is really important. But when you listen to what these Chicago Bears have said, overwhelmingly, the Bears in this locker room have talked openly and loudly about the fact that they want a leader who understands chemistry. He understands as a head coach how to build leadership in his players, in his coaching staff, and that group works together to clearly communicate to the front office. That's what these players have all but said. You listen to DJ Moore, you listen to Keenan Allen, two of the veteran leaders on the Chicago Bears roster, who have both said, We need an experienced head coach. And I think one of the bigger storylines here that not a lot of people are talking about is the freak factor with Ben Johnson. And now it's started to come out that Ben Johnson is not a very good interview. When you bring him in to interview for your head coaching job, he does not apparently overwhelm you with his answers, his personality. Apparently, Ben Johnson wants 100% control of his coaching staff. As a first-time head coach, that usually does not happen. Ben Johnson has said this year that he is going to completely change the way he interviews, that he will not just interview for every open job. He is only interviewing for gigs that he has an intention of taking, which is why it's very interesting. He is going to interview with the Chicago Bears. And I think that is very interesting. The only other gig that he is going to interview for, the New England Patriots. That is very interesting to me, that he is just not taking every interview.
Mm-hmm.
And one comparison that I heard yesterday, Josh McDaniels and Ben Johnson. And that's not a comparison, if you're Ben Johnson, that you are excited to be part of, in my opinion.
I would agree with that.
I think that's why Mike McCarthy is being asked to interview for the Chicago Bears job. Is he the guy I would hire? No. But you know what I like about this request? It's unexpected. It's well thought out. It's a different way of thinking. We're not going for the rookie head coach with no experience. You know what? Hey, our players have spoken. We need to not only acknowledge what they've said, we need to make an effort to fulfill that request. My guy, and I think I've said this all along, would be Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. That'd be my dude. That'd be my number one target. I never even thought about Mike McCarthy, but I'll tell you, as somebody that's a passionate supporter of the Chicago Bears, I don't hate Mike McCarthy as the next head coach. This guy's offenses in Dallas and in Green Bay are routinely league leading, near the top of the league, passing offenses, above middle rushing offenses. His quarterbacks almost, you look at Dak Prescott's numbers, he's been better under Mike McCarthy. You look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' best days, Mike McCarthy was his head coach. And certain a-holes and jamokes walked into my studio this morning and were talking about how Mike McCarthy and his fat head got run out of Green Bay.
Me?
So this guy walks in here and he's like, yeah, fathead got run out of Green Bay. Why are you excited about this? Was it Mike McCarthy or was Aaron Rodgers actually the problem in Green Bay? Yeah, I think I'm going to lean that Aaron Rodgers and his mud butt ayahuasca drinking self was a big part of the problem in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I'm not an Aaron Rodgers guy. I think I've made that pretty clear. I don't disagree that Aaron Rodgers played a key role in Mike leaving Green Bay. The thing that concerns me, and again, I'm not saying Caleb Williams is Aaron Rodgers, but I think when you hire a head coach, when you're in the Bears position, you have to consider the long-term ramifications as well. So like, hey, if we hire Mike, and let's say that Mike does what, people who like this hire think he will. He'll develop Caleb. They'll turn into, at a minimum, a wild card team. Hopefully, ideally, you would turn into a regular playoff team for the next, however long Mike would be there. I guess my biggest thing is just, okay, I can see how Mike translates to taking you from where you are now to a playoff team. But then is that to like in 3 seasons, if you've made the playoffs every year, let's say next year you're a wild card team, and now let's say you win a divisional, you win a you get to that next round. Is that good enough? Because that's the other thing I'm curious about. Because
wait a minute, did you just matriculate down the field with a well thought out conversation here?
Maybe, I don't know. Let's not get carried away. But my
little boy grew up.
The problem is on the other side of it, the guy I would hire, Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliffy.
Obviously, as we said yesterday, not a great ownership situation when he was in Arizona.
But hot girlfriend,
epic mansion in Scottsdale.
Sex pad.
Yeah, like
it's my guy.
Vibes, we get it. But again, that didn't really work out, right? It didn't pan. Like Kyler Murray it was a good quarterback, but I think he's seen better days after Cliffy. So you can make an argument both ways, but the reality of the situation is whoever the Bears hire, it has to be the right hire for now and for probably 5 seasons at least.
And as Lopes fan Gabe said, who's been a member of the show for 24 freaking months, my dude, hit the like button. As you hit the like button, I would ask you, who's a better fit? Cliff Kingsbury or Mike McCarthy? Both of them have experience with terrible owners. Mike McCarthy's got experience in the division at Green Bay where he won a Super Bowl.
Right.
Mike McCarthy and Cliffy both have deep experience developing quarterbacks, taking them to not a good level, an elite level. I mean, I think those are your 2 best candidates.
Well, I think you're leaving out one key piece. Cliff's got experience with Caleb Williams. That's the only other thing that I would add to his.
Very briefly at USC.
Mm-hmm. But
that
still,
matters.
Yeah.
Excellent point. My feeling is Mike McCarthy is probably a better choice than Cliff Kingsbury. The thing that worries me is I don't want Brian Schottenheimer as the offensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears. And that seems to be Mike McCarthy's guy. Now, I think we all know that Mike builds legendary staffs, but here nor there. At the end of the day, I think that's a really good question. What's the expectation if McCarthy gets a job? Do we expect the Bears to be a perennial playoff performer? Ryan Poles, if he's still your general manager, and it appears he will be, the offensive line has to get exponentially better.
Right.
And you have to continue to draft well.
Which I say, you pull up the draft order, conversation we were having the other day.
Well,
now I got to start talking about, okay, well, let's say, today's Tuesday? Let's say by the weekend you've hired your head coach. Maybe it's next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the next 10 days or whatever. Okay, let's say that goes down. Mike McCarthy is your head coach who you hire and he brings in his staff. Now I got to start asking, well, what are you doing in the draft now that you've hired Mike? Because obviously it goes without saying you're not drafting quarterback. You've already got one.
Yes.
I would obviously think that you're going to draft offensive line. But my question is, what is Mike's thought and philosophy on the Bears roster? Is Mike's coming in saying, hey, we got to improve the offensive line? That goes without saying. But in this year's draft, I really want to spend most of our assets on the offensive side. I want to beef up the running back room, let's say, or I want to beef up this or that. Or would Mike say, hey, we have a solid defense, but I want to get more edge rushing, because Mike's always had dominant edge rushers on his football team for the most part. So those are the things that I'm curious about. If you hire Cliff, that conversation is going to be different.
Look at this draft order. And a lot of people thought, and I think I even said this yesterday on the show, I was disappointed to see the Bears go from 9 to 10. But I spent a lot of time mock drafting yesterday looking at who really needs what in this draft order. I think one of the biggest things that happened was Tennessee moved up to number 1 and New England fell to number 4. And you might say, well, Monty, why? Because I think when you look at what's ahead of the Bears now, the Titans are no longer looking at anything but, in my opinion, Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I think at 2, the Cleveland Browns are looking at nothing but quarterback.
Yeah, and by the way, on that note, the Deshaun Watson update yesterday, how, he had a setback. A lot of people think his career's over, so they're definitely drafting quarterback.
3 now. The New York Giants are no longer going to go offensive line. You're going Travis Hunter. There's no question about that. I feel like the top 3 are really locked in here. 4, New England Patriots. This one's very interesting because if you let's say you hire Ben Johnson, right? Let's say that's the move you make.
For the Patriots.
You're probably going offensive line. I would think.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that situation, and this, I guess, is where conjecture comes in, I think they're a better fit with Calvin Banks.
Mm-hmm.
That's where life gets exponentially better for the Bears because then you start looking up and down. Jacksonville's going defense. There's no doubt about it. Vegas is going skill player on the outside. There's no doubt about it. I think the Jets are going skill player on the outside because there's no quarterback there. I would assume the Jets are going to make a trade, but Carolina's going defense. You have to. There's no question about it. The Saints, there's no question they're going to get somebody who murders quarterbacks. So then look who's sitting at number 10 for the Chicago Bears, which is shocking that now the best offensive tackle in the draft, who is Will Campbell from LSU,
right?
Who is, in my opinion, 1A and 1A to Banks. But there's no doubt Will Campbell's a better fit for the Chicago Bears.
Right.
And I say that because Caleb Williams was sacked 68 times.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have to say on that point, part of that is just the awful offensive scheme they were running. And their play calling based on down and distance was absolutely awful and compounded how bad this offensive line is.
Can you imagine him either slotting in at right tackle or left guard? Because he fits both in the NFL.
Right.
Forget it. If that is the, just, you don't even have to think about it. You're just, that name's on the slip and you're just waiting to send it in. I'm telling you, the Bears are sitting pretty.
Yeah.
The Bears are sitting pretty, and I know not a lot of people are going to love that, but.
Well, I mean, they're definitely on the right track to get back to being a contender. There's no doubt. I mean, I think that, the problem is, and maybe it's not a problem, the timing works out fine. I mean, you've got 3 11-win plus teams in the division. Obviously the line's sitting at 16 wins or 15 wins now or whatever it is. So like, you have a
15.
division that you're in where the other 3 teams are really good right now and you're bad. So hopefully if you can get this right and then you can draft well, hopefully that paradigm shifts and one of those teams falls off and you can become that team that's trying to be a 10-win team.
I think if you look at the NFC North, the Packers are very much up in the air. I think you look at the Vikings, all of a sudden, and it's not me, but all of a sudden people are questioning Sam Darnold at quarterback. I agree. The turnovers continue. The missed throws continue.
Well, and when you go 18-41 in your first playoff game with the team, that's a rough look.
That Sunday night game, I think, really damaged in there, but fine.
Yeah.
The best team in this division is the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
And I think that's a team that is now going to deal with attrition. And if they don't win the Super Bowl now, I feel like Detroit's at this, you're either going to win and go to the top of the mountain or you're going to plummet. Because you're probably going to lose 2 of your coordinators. Aaron Glenn's interviewing in New Orleans, and he played in New Orleans, by the way. So that's a big deal. I think Ben Johnson's going to get the New England job. So you're going to have to replace 2 coordinators. And I'm really curious to see, can Detroit win the Super Bowl now? Okay, great conversation down the road. This division next year will not be up for grabs. I think Detroit will still be very good. The Bears have a path to the playoff next year.
Yeah.
Hire Mike McCarthy. Hire Cliff Kingsbury. Draft a good offensive lineman. And add depth on your offensive line and your defensive line. That's what this team needs. It does not need to be torn down and rebuilt.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think, and maybe that's where we're different on the whole rebuilding concept. When I say that I still think they're in the middle of rebuilding, I'm not saying that I think they should tear it down at all. I think that they've done a solid job to this point. The problem is that and it's the point you always make, the Bears don't understand timing with firing guys and hiring guys. And so now
I agree.
You're in the middle of your process where Eberflus had to be fired. That just wasn't going to make it the rest of the year.
Yep.
And now you're looking at hiring somebody. So I just think that there's a lot of factors that go into it. But the good news is that I think we've seen, Poles and Kevin Warren and ownership typically are on the same page. Couple of bumps in the road here and there, but have been on the same page. And overall, the Bears really should be able to go from where they are now to becoming a playoff team every year. And if you get it right, you should be a team for the next 10 years with Caleb Williams that competes for the division. That's what we're talking about.
So Eric in Durham says nothing says Bears football like getting a retread coach that failed with the Packers and Cowboys.
Well, I don't know that I'd say failed with the Packers. He won a Super Bowl. And by the way, he was in the playoffs almost every year.
And I don't even think he's failed with the Cowboys. Have they won? No. Have his offenses been terrible? Not at all. Have they been league leading? Yes. Is that a horribly flawed roster? Yes. Is ownership ask yourself this question in Dallas. Mike McCarthy or the ownership? Who's more to blame? Mike certainly carries some blame, no question. But you really think the way they handled the cap, the way they handled Dak and CeeDee Lamb's contracts, you feel like that's Mike McCarthy's fault? Because those are the things that are plaguing this team. You think offering guys essentially combined $10 million more because you waited to sign them, that's Mike McCarthy's fault? I don't think it is. I would disagree with you on that. Mike Smith, good morning, Mountain Mama. Have the Jets contacted the Monty show to interview for the head coaching job? They did. They did. Well, they did. I just didn't tell you that.
Oh,
and I turned it down.
Well, let's see. That's a smart decision.
I turned it down.
Yeah.
I appreciate you asking. I think Big Mike would be good for a young QB. No question about it.
Yeah, I
no doubt about it.
I'm not saying Mike would be bad. I don't disagree. He can come in and do what you need him to do.
You're saying it's an energy inspiration.
It's an energy inspiration philosophical hire.
It's tough to argue with that. I agree.
And I do think when you're hiring a head coach, it's good to have contrast. You've got two very different guys here. And again, we don't know who what their depth chart is of who they prioritize, obviously. But I have to think Mike McCarthy and Cliff Kingsbury are your two best options here, because Ben Johnson, this news about Ben Johnson and the way he interviews, and obviously you're going to interview him, you see firsthand, but I have to think Mike and Cliff Kingsbury are the two leading candidates to go ahead and pick up this job. And it's just going to come down to who you think can do the most for you. Mike McCarthy is a veteran. He's been in the league for Lord knows how long. I mean, it's got to be close to 25 years now or whatever it is. So he's clearly got the edge and experience. But I think the crazy thing is with this conversation, what Cliff Kingsbury's doing with Jaden Daniels now actively, you can't tell me that doesn't speak to those guys. So
you can't just look away from it.
So I think it's difficult. It comes down to, what do you prioritize more? I would agree with you that I think Mike McCarthy, in the long term, if we're looking 5 to 7 years down the road, is probably the more reliable hire.
Safer.
Yeah, safer. But I'll be damned if I don't say, hey, Cliff Kingsbury is a better developer of young guy right out of college or 1 to 2 years in the league than I think Mike is.
Well, and the other question is, would he hire, because the Bears are said to have a major, lower extremity blood flow.
Stay hard.
For Tommy Rees. And I agree that Tommy Rees is a really good offensive mind and a really good developer of quarterbacks. Is Mike McCarthy going to come in and they're going to be like, hey, we want you to hire Tommy Rees to be your offensive coordinator? I don't think he's going to do that.
No.
I don't think.
And again, that's another great point. With Mike, you're not going to have as much say on his staff. He's been doing this a long time.
But his staffs have been
really good,
rock solid,
really good,
right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget this dude went 36-15 in a 3-year stretch with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
where his offenses were at the top of the NFL.
Yeah,
he's not in my.
So are you?
He's 100. He's 174 versus 112 wins and losses. He's a 500 coach in the playoffs, which most guys are not elite in the playoffs.
But again, I have to say he's getting to the playoffs with regularity.
He is,
even though he's a 500 head coach. I agree, hasn't won enough in the playoffs. They've had multiple opportunities to be the better team, go out and win ball games they should win, and they just haven't got the job done. I agree with that. That's fair criticism. But unfortunately for the Bears, that would be better than where they are now. And if you can get to the playoffs and he can just get you, dude, if the Bears are playing for an NFC championship in 3 seasons, Mike McCarthy's going to be God in that town.
I will be naked, lathered up in coconut oil if that happens.
Yeah,
because
you know what I mean?
I'm not
Like,
used
What's an erection?
as a Bears fan. I'm not used to going to the playoffs.
Yeah. So
I'm not.
so would you hire Mike, or who would you want to hire? You think?
I think Cliffy would probably be my number one. Here's the problem, though. Ben Johnson is somebody I've been excited about, but the stuff coming out about the way Ben Johnson interviews,
yeah,
that's a little surprise. We talked about this on the show yesterday. Why is the guy not taking a job yet?
Yeah.
And what is the stigma around him? Well, he's been offered jobs allegedly that he has not taken. And there is some belief that Carolina wanted to hire him and he just didn't call back.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some belief that he is interviewed and just tanked in these interviews. That's concerning. That's for being the best offensive mind. That's concerning. And the on the field stuff matters. They've been elite. Jared Goff's never been a better quarterback. Gaff.
Again,
but
he's a coordinator, not a head coach.
That's
there.
right.
And he doesn't have that responsibility.
Bobby Saleh for the Bears. Nah, I'm good. You can't hire a defensive guy in Chicago, right? That's why Vrabel can't be a candidate.
Yeah.
You know, Vrabel to the Patriots. I think so. And another spot for Tommy Rees. Mike Vrabel and Tommy Rees have a great relationship. So I would watch that. Oh, wow, look at that. Stymie. Rumors Tommy Rees to Vrabel's OC if he gets a Patriots job.
Yeah.
Why is that wild, though? You guys understand that Tommy Rees is, obviously, he's a Notre Dame guy. But he's a guy that, I mean, if you look at where he's been, like Alabama, you look at the offenses, you look at the bridge he built in South Bend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's done great work. He's really done good work. UW fan Jim, good morning. I think Mike McCarthy is a hell of a coach and he needs to get away from Jerry World. Yeah. Credit where credit's due. Anybody notice the development of Jim Roma Dunze as a blocker? Last 3 weeks, he's had some pretty critical blocking assignments that he's come through on. Now, mofo can't still catch the drops with that cat. Somebody's got to get that kid on a jugs machine this offseason. But Roma Dunze showed real growth since Ebersucks got fired. He showed real development in the blocking scheme for the Bears, which is exciting.
It's huge. It's necessary. It has to happen.
Your wide receivers have to be elite blockers. There is some, not that you guys care about this, but what's coming out about how the Bears handled the post-Eberflus situation, the players really took over that team Monday through Saturday. The coaches focused solely on install and game plan. The players really set the tone in practice. And I think that's why we saw better play as the last month of the season went on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you don't recover from what happened in Washington. The Hail Mary. In my opinion, is teams don't recover from that.
Right.
But look how much better Tyreek Stevenson was after that. Benched for 2 weeks. Look at how much better he played after that. That's not the coach. That's the player culture. And what's coming out about that locker room now and the high level of character in that locker room is exciting. And we're terrible. We don't win games. But
I think you understand why you don't win games, and I do think it's pretty fixable.
Yeah, I agree. So, welcome to Nothing Air. Being in the same boat and coaching conversation with Josh McDaniels is not what you want to be on. No, it's not. No, it's not. A couple more, then we got to get to the Ohio State. Eric and Raleigh, Marcus Freeman to the Bears after winning the college football playoff. Why do you keep going to defensive guys? Why would you hire Marcus Freeman? A, why would he leave Notre Dame after signing what amounts to a lifetime contract? B, why would you want a defensive guy to be the head coach of this team? The math does not add up. It does not add up.
The math doesn't math.
Yeah, that's right. The math, there ain't no math in or Pythagorean theorem stuff. Big Blue Horses. MM has overperformed in Dallas. That's Mike McCarthy.
Oh, thank you.
Has overperformed in Dallas, given that the owner and the lack of talent on the roster. Did he develop Dak? No. Yeah. Oh, certainly he has. See, this is, again, I go back to this whole thing. Here are the offensive ranks under Mike McCarthy. Offense 2021 number 1, 22 number 11, 23 number 5. This year his worst year 17.
But also the Cowboys' worst year, riddled with injury.
Yes. No question about it. Number 2 in passing touchdowns, 19 or 6th and 19th in passing touchdowns. Right? So you see the injuries, and Mike McCarthy's offenses have not been bad in Dallas. Dak Prescott, if you look at Dak Prescott's arc, right? And you think to yourself, okay, Mike McCarthy got to Dallas in 2020. If we look at Dak's numbers, once Mike McCarthy got there, right? And you start saying to yourself, okay, by any measure, his 2 best seasons by far under Mike McCarthy. I think what he did last year in 2023, completing 70% of his passes, 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 9 interceptions.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me with Mike McCarthy offenses is the yardage number. Like, you can have a quarterback who, is like 3,500 to 4,000 yards and still have that amount of touchdowns if you're good in the red zone. But what those numbers are telling you is that they put when his offenses are run correctly and his roster is healthy, you're pushing the ball down the field with regularity and reliability. And that's the thing, that I think is really interesting, because if you look at Dak versus Caleb Williams as a quarterback, Caleb Williams is a lot more mobile than Dak is. Dak can run a little bit, and he'll run to get his first down.
The broken ankle leg thing.
Yeah, but again, that ever since that's happened, Dak hasn't been nearly the runner he used to be, which is fine. It's to be expected. I'm not criticizing Dak for that, but my point is that if Mike McCarthy is the head coach of a Caleb Williams-led offense, I think you're going to see some good things. I think you're going to see one of the things that the Bears never did, or at least I didn't see it, maybe I just missed it, is there's no pre-snap motioning. There's no identifying what the defense is through moving guys around before you snap the football. There's none of that little stuff that would help Caleb Williams be a better quarterback. So, I think it's pretty harsh to say he didn't develop Dak at all. I think Dak became the polished quarterback that he is and is known to be under Mike McCarthy. And before that, he was still kind of a raw talent that was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, I mean, we can go round and round about this. There's no doubt about that.
Mike is going to be one of those candidates. And I know that you listen to the Score in Chicago all the time. He is going to be a candidate that the public reacts 50-50 on. Some people are going to love this hire, and some people are going to hate this hire. You're going to have people that say he's a mediocre-ass head coach who's been in the league a long time and hasn't won enough, and seemingly always has a hurt QB or player. And then you're going to have other people who say, hey, well, he's always got someone who's hurt, and the years he didn't have someone hurt, he won the Super Bowl and had 5,000-yard passers.
But I also think that the Tyreek Stevenson situation, I think, is very interesting. When you tell a cat you're not starting anymore, and you make him earn his way back to that, and you make him a rotational player, and that's a guy that, and you may remember on the Hail Mary, his back was to the line of scrimmage when the ball was snapped. It was a disaster. You benched him for that, essentially, took away his starting job, made him a rotational player, and then the last 2 weeks of the year, you give him his starting job back, and he's an exponentially better player. The culture's there. You need a guy to put whipped cream on top of the sundae.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I think that's what you get. I think that's really what you get when you hire him. I think that's what you get, but that's just me. The Chad Carter, call me crazy, but there's a chance Brable tells Kraft to pound Sienna, goes to Chicago. No, because I think the Chicago Bears want a guy that's an offensive mind. I think that's Mike Vrabel's a great coaching candidate.
Not a fit for their situation, though.
He just isn't. He just is not a fit for their situation. So I think it's interesting. The Enron Egg mobile nuclear reactor. Your thoughts? What is it? What are you doing today,
bro?
What are you doing today? That I don't understand. Speaking of the Chad Carter, let's switch gears. Let's get to the college football playoff. Yes, we got carried away on the Bears, but
Talking NFL, man. Don't complain. Don't complain.
Oh, I don't know that anybody's complaining, but our football talk on this show is presented by Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Let me show you want to know, my friends, what did I tell you? How do you win on Prize Picks? What do I tell you every day? You win on Prize Picks by listening to good old Uncle Monty. I told you the NBA is one of the easiest places to win on Prize Picks. I told you Devin Bicker.
Who's Devin Bicker?
Dicker the kicker.
Stay hard.
Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns were going to win last night. That was not a question. But when you forecast Brad Beal, who had a 16.5 point number last night.
Brad Beal.
He hasn't earned Bradley. When he had a 16.5 point number and a 24 point rebound and assist number last night, and you say to yourself, look, Marty, you can't lose on this one. And he drops 25 points when you took him at 16.5. Pimp's going pimp. And then, of course, Devin Booker last night, who had a 28.5 point number, pimp slaps you when he only puts up 24.
Wet like I'm booked.
Not last night. But then you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to torch Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, the alien.
And Victor Wembanyama last night has a phenomenal game against my crappy Chicago Bulls. But he had a 41.5 point number last night, right? I took less. He finished with 41. Half a point. Just another basket, and I lose. But I didn't lose.
Cashless.
Because as I said, pimp's gonna pimp. And Kobe White dunking on Victor Wembanyama last night. Bro, again.
Stay hard.
I don't subject myself to much self-inflicted pain. So I avoid the Chicago Bulls until last night.
The rack attack.
Watching Kobe White attack the rack. That's why you play Prize Picks, because Book doesn't have to hit last night. My dude understands that. He can let me down once a month because I played a flex play. 3 picks, only need 2 to win. That's what I got last night.
Yes.
Walked away with $20. Life is good on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty. You deposit $5. They'll give you 50 more when you open a new Prize Picks account using the promo code Monty. Go take advantage of the $25 protected play you get right out of the gate. Go take advantage of Flexi Friday. There's so many reasons and so many ways to win. The college football playoff, great place to start with your new Prize Picks account. Promo code Monty.
By the way,
yes.
We're going on this business trip. We will be coming to you from the sports book most likely during the college football playoff. So make sure you stick around the channel. We will be providing some content solutions.
We will do that. It's going to be a fun trip. We're going to Vegas, so we're off the rest of the week. We're going to Vegas for CES. I have some big business to do there. Looking forward to it. I wish it was a golf trip. We're going to play some golf, but duh. But this is all business. But yeah, Thursday night. Who wants to watch the Irish lose with me on Thursday night? Anybody? Let's not talk about that game yet. Let's talk about. I just can't.